And this is going to be about private museums and all the digitalization and the new way of enjoying art, virtual reality, mixed reality. And Henry is a very old friend, so you've moderating panels for us for how many years? I do not remember, so it's so long. So, but we know each other for many years. And what I like very much for this time, so Henry is really in his field because, of course, his company, MasterArt and ArtSolutions, are also developing a lot of digital tools for fairs and galleries. So he was the first one that introduced me to VR. I think it was in Paris, if I remember well, at Foire des Antiquaires or
Biennale, yes.
Biennale, exactly. So this was a long, long time ago, and of course technology has improved a lot. And so I think you are really the perfect man to moderate this panel. Thank you very much, all panelists, and I will leave you in the hands of Henry. And so there's a lot of videos. Enjoy the show.
Does my mic work? Yes.
Yes.
No, it's working. Okay. Well, thank you for those who are there. I think by now your hard drive is pretty full, and you're all waiting for the gin and tonics afterwards. But anyway, thank you for being there. And we won't be too long, because I can tell you these chairs are incredibly uncomfortable. Going back to trends in private museums and VR. Private museums have really sprang up since the year 2000. I read a report that in the last 10, 15 years, over 250 private museums were created around the world, brick and mortar private museums, which is a huge increase because during the 20th century there have been barely 100. So it's just incredible. Now this is obviously driven by collectors who either do it for philanthropic reasons or for self-promotion. That happens as well. But there's really a will from private collectors to share their collections. And this is where we come here on this subject, where obviously setting up a brick and mortar museum is quite an achievement. And VR might be a solution to further promote and share art. Yes, so coming to that, sorry, it's a bit of blank there. But it's all about, nowadays, and we've been talking about it nearly all day, is about accessing data and information. Now we want everything immediately and easy. Alexa is perhaps one of the most best examples for it. You just ask Alexa what you want, and within a few seconds, you know what the weather is, and so on. So there's really a drive to access information very quickly in a user-friendly way. And this is where I think VR and our speakers will be explaining this over their presentations. And VR can really bring something here to the art market and to sharing the information. Now, technology will evolve. Some critics will say, well, is it really ready? It will be ready if it's not already, but you'll see by the demonstrations here, and Vitomir has got a stand over there, it's pretty mind-blowing. So what I'll do now is just introduce our speakers. I will start with Sylvain Levy, who is, the owner and the promoter of the DSL collection.
Not the owner, the co-owner.
Co-owner, sorry.
Right.
Yes, you've got the owner, very good.
It's the best part of the family.
He will get more into detail into his collection, but it's a collection based over Asian art. Sylvain has been really a forerunner in the digital promotion of a collection. Having started in 2005. He'll tell you all about it. It's pretty amazing. No one was near it at the time when he started. We've got Allegra Shorto. She is from the Khora contemporary gallery, can I call it like that? Or
art producer.
Art producer. And so they're very interesting. They're very much in the forefront of technology and art, as they are promoting and supporting and helping artists to create artworks with using virtual reality and technology in general. I find it very interesting. Allegra gave me a very good example. I cannot remember the name now, sorry, but of this Japanese group of artists, which is fantastic, who've created exhibitions using light as an art medium, and they've been hugely successful. So we are definitely getting there as well, and she will be then giving us more information later on this. Then we've got Joël Kremer, who is, has got an IT background as well. You know, he's been, he worked for Google for many years, and he's still a consultant on Google products, AdWords, and various other ones. And he's also got a collecting background through his family, being his mother and his father, who have created an absolutely fabulous collection on old masters. Joel, being in the IT sector, said, you know, how could I make this collection available to a wider audience? Obviously, he didn't go for brick and mortar. He decided to go to technology, and he'll tell you more about it. And then we've got Vitomir, who has founded VR All Art, which is an immersive experience using 3D and virtual reality, where you can absolutely create your own gallery, the museum, and so on, well, as Joel does as well. Vitomir has got a background of IT. You know, he's been for 20 years working for various companies in different ventures, but mainly in sort of the gaming industry or anything to do with graphics. So I will start with Sylvain, perhaps. So yes, every speaker has got a presentation. So as we are, and it's something very visual here, we're not talking about accounts, insurances, numbers, and so on, and to be able to understand really better what they do and what we're going to talk about, these presentations will be useful. Sylvain.
Thank you very much for first inviting me and for your presentation. I think that the subject is about private museums and virtual reality, and I will much focus on private museums, and I will try to explain why and how a private collection decides to become public, and what this is the first thing that I would like to discuss. The other thing is what are the main takeaways that we've got by being public, and how it has changed the way we collect and the way we share the collection. And I would like also to complement a little bit the panel of Simon de Pury, and try to give our vision on how to be relevant in 2030. This is, I think, in a few minutes, what I would like to just to try to bring food on the table of this panel, knowing that after we can discuss more generally what is private collection and public collection. But let's begin by sharing our history, our journey through the DSL collection. Also, the DSL collection is a family adventure. As I said, it has been, it's my wife and myself, we've been collecting for 34 years, but we began the DSL collection in 2005. And as I said, that we are very, very lucky because we have our daughter who has been working with us for 10 years, and now Karen, she is becoming, I shall say, the flagship, and she's infusing the collection her, I shall say, fresh eyes and new spirit. You know, we belong to the 20th century, and we are in the 21st century, and it's very important for us to have the collection done and, I shall say, baked with this new century's spirit. So we decided with this collection, when we began, after a travel in China, we decided that we wanted to share our collection with the Chinese people. Because at this moment, there was not many museum type collection, and so we decided to make a museum type collection with installation, videos, photos, and not just paintings. And so when you decide to make a museum type collection, it means that you decide to open the collection to the public. How can we do that? And how to do it, sorry. There are to have a brick and mortar museum, you have many constraints. The first one is the cost of the building. The second one, which is also very important, is about sustainability. And just I show you a survey which was made by the American Alliance of Museums. A revenue per visitor is $7, and the cost is $53. So I think it's something very important, is sustainability. And the last point, which is also very important, is longevity. How can you have something which can last, and not just to open it, but to have it last? So these were the challenges that we faced. We decided in 2005, because we were in the 21st century, to look at the question through, I shall say, disruptive eyes. Disruptive eyes, 2005 is the beginning of YouTube. And so we decided that perhaps we should try a new model by being nomadic, but also by trying to find new ways to share the collection. It brought us to what I shall say, a model of being phygital. Phygital means physical and digital. But even more than that, we noticed very quickly that what was important was to be omnipresent. And to be omnipresent was to be showing works, physical, creating experiences in the digital world. But something very interesting was also to be on social networks and to try to become a platform of ideas. Because if we want to try to solve the question of longevity, we have to move from having to be exactly like Lady Guggenheim. She is, I should say, eternal, not only because of her works, but also because of her personality. So for us, social networks are very important to transmit ideas. And just to give you an example, this is one of my latest post, and I had 18,000 people looking at it, and it has created a discussion with more than 100 persons. So this is what are, I shall say, the tools that we use today to be done. In terms of the digital, I shall say the digital presence, we began in 2005 by putting the collection on the internet. But very, very quickly we surfed on the digital wave, and we'll show you some videos. We went in the 3D museums, we recreated the Grand Palais, and with glasses you could see some of our big works floating in the space. Then after, we created a Second Life Museum in 2010, and finally in 2015, we went into VR with this virtual reality museum. We already are at the third version of virtual reality. Can we move to the other one? Can we move to the other slide?
The remote is not working.
Any questions?
So, coming back to reality, what are the main takeaways that we have experienced since 2005? Main takeaways that we have experienced not only with our experience, but also taking also, I shall say, being inspired by what's happening in the museums industry. I think that the four main takeaways for me, the more dominant one, and the first one is that more and more art is not about object, it's about an experience. And we've quoted Team Lab, Skusama, Team Lab, and more and more people go to museums to have experience. The other thing which is interesting is that today, why people go to museums? And there was a survey done by Track. 81% of the people who are going to museums is not to be educated. It's not about the history of art. It's just to have fun. So what we have to do is to create something called edutainment, means education and entertainment. This is the other thing which is very important for us. The third thing is about being accessible and being beyond the walls. And today you can see that the biggest museums are going to VR. It's the case of, for instance, the Palace of Versailles or Monaco with the Louvre. So it's very important to always think of being out of the walls. And the last thing, which is very important also, and for us, is to try to reach what I shall call the missing audience. The missing audience are, for instance, the old people, the gray hair generation, but also the young people, by bringing something which is playful. These are the four, I shall say, the four takeaways which are shaping the way we collect, the works we collect, and how we want to share the collection with the public. Now, my final talk will be related to the fourth panel, to the panel of 2030. What was very interesting with this panel is that I think they had trouble to express how they see the market in 2030. Because it's very difficult to express something like this. When you imagine that the smartphone just has 12 years, what will be the world in the next 12 years? I think nobody can really express it. So instead of trying to have a vision of what is the world in the next future, I think what we have learned is that in order to, I shall say, to understand the systemic changes that we have to change our mindset. We have to be, as an organization, we have to be agile, creative, imaginative, and always open to changes. The other thing which is very important to us is that more and more, we are entering into a 2.0 world. And to tell the truth, I think that this 2.0 world has the perfume of 1984, Orwell's world. And in order to counterbalance this 2.0 world, we have to focus on humanity. And what is interesting today is art, because art is a human center by nature, or process. Art is one of the best ways to be human. And what is important today is about new humanism. It means it's about humanism also with new technology, knowing that never art should serve technology, but technology should serve art.
That was a very thorough and clear explanation on your experience and the experience in general. I would just add that I don't think my children find it fun to go to the museum. They just think it's more education when I take them to the museum. I think now we will move to Vitomir, and so that you can actually sort of introduce us to what technology sort of offers today as to hardware and software and experiences for those products.
Yes, thank you very much. But I think that it will be very difficult to actually speak about the things that we're doing after Sylvain gave such a fantastic philosophical introduction of what is going on currently in the world and what will happen in the future. So I will maybe just try to say a couple of things before we move to the slide where I say what we are doing, is that I really do believe that we have, as you said, that it is maybe our job today is to fight the humanity's battle for the humanity, and to fight for the arts and culture space to be present in the digital age. And this is what drives me, because it's very difficult today to find a way through the digital jungle and all of this, like a noise that is happening all around us, and to find the right place to have culture embedded into everyday content that is on social networks, for example. But I can tell you this for sure, is that virtual reality today is nothing compared to what it will be in like 5 or 10 years' time. So we are now not even in the Nokia state, like a mobile phone, not even there. So in the next couple of years, we can expect the glasses, I'll tell you about these glasses, but much thinner and more easier to use and everything. So people will shift to virtual reality. You will not even know that shift happened, and we will be there. And I can tell you why we are doing what we are doing with VR Art, is because we believe that there is a big place for arts and culture in the virtual reality. And if we don't get there at the beginning of a game, we will be very hard to get there at the end or in the middle of the game, because the spectacle will be the thing that will provide content for people in virtual reality. So all that being said, I will get back to
I like about well, all of you actually, it's a sort of sharing concept. With this technology, an African living in Kinshasa can go and visit the Louvre without taking ever an airplane, which today or yesterday he couldn't do. He could perhaps see a book on the Louvre, go on internet, see a few photographs, but he could never have the experiencing of actually visiting the museum. So it's just making all that culture, information available to anybody, and for virtually free. I suppose your collection can be seen free, and this is absolutely fabulous.
To get, on your point, is that we had a call from a guy from Australia, and he said, like, what you're doing is fantastic, and where can I see it, where can I download it? But the main thing was that he needs to drive for 10 hours to the nearest city, and his children cannot get to an experience of a museum, not even close to it. And I'm not talking about the Louvres, but just, a decent, a small museum in a local town. And there are so many people around the globe that cannot travel and cannot get access to, arts and culture space. And this is the reason why we're doing this.
Well,
okay.
Explain it. It's very fascinating.
So VR Light is basically a platform and a new marketplace for artists, galleries, collectors, and museums to create virtual reality exhibitions and to buy and sell art pieces in the case of course, marketplace, but in the case of museums to showcase exhibitions in virtual reality. So we saw the need to create not only like exhibition per exhibition or museum per museum, but actually to create an ecosystem of a lot of galleries and a lot of museums in one place, let's say in one app or in one downloadable app, so that when you enter the world of arts and culture through VR Art, you're able to access all the art there is on the platform and all the museums. And we think this is quite important shift in approach, because then we are providing tools for galleries and museums to create exhibitions themselves. We're not creating them for them. We are creating, letting them create them. And this led us to develop VR Art, of course, and we are very close to a public launch, but we don't want to do it not yet, because we are now using it privately in museums and in galleries, and we are now, based on what you heard in the last 4 panels, the art market is very difficult to penetrate. You need usually to go from the top. You can never go to the top if you start from the bottom. But these are some challenges that are facing the talk in a panel later on. So without further ado, I would like to play the video of how it looks, and we have live demonstrations there. And because the video we turned off the sound, so you can see this is a person in VR. Some of the collections that we have already inside VR Art, you will probably recognize some of the works. But basically, navigation is very simple. You just tap to teleport yourself. And for example, this is a very important part of our platform. Is we developed a special surface scanner that can scan the surface of paintings and extract 4 levels of details from the surface. So you can see all these little cracks and things in the painting, and brush strokes of an artist, and also reflections. And these galleries, some of them we create to present real-life spaces. We call them a clone gallery. So you have a gallery in real life and a clone in virtual reality, but some of them, like this one, does not exist in real life. It's only a virtual construct. And we like to play with these things. And this is the National Museum, for example, in Serbia, that we did, a big museum. And the second movie is the same platform, but on a mobile phone. So we will see augmented reality exhibitions. So the same exhibition that exists in virtual reality can also exist in augmented reality. And this was done for a gallery in Zurich that is dealing with the Cuban art. And you can imagine that Cuban art cannot travel pretty well because Cuba is under sanctions and it's difficult. So we created a virtual gallery for him so he can present art on Cuba and art from Cuba around the world. And which is really cool is, you can download this app today and try it out. It's like you're literally walking in the gallery with a mobile phone while you're standing in your room. And you can go around, or you can tap on the floor to move virtually, but you can also walk virtually. So we think that, and one more thing which I might add before I end my time, is we found that the most important thing for creating a private virtual museum or a private virtual gallery or a public gallery is the level of details that are put into the space itself. Like the architecture and the lighting and everything needs to be perfect. So we spend a lot of time perfecting these technologies to really present the space in a proper way. Why? Because what we found out is the moment that the gallery is realistic and fantastic, when you get in, you really feel like you're in a real gallery. That's the moment when you stop thinking about VR and you focus on art and you focus on a story that is in the virtual environment. If it's not believable enough, you worry about the environment. If it's believable, and today the technology gives us this ability, you stop worrying about it and you just enjoy the content.
That's a very good point. So I think really for it to be sort of widely accepted is that the first reaction we have is just seeing those incredible glasses and you want to try them on and you want to live the sort of VR experience. That's the first thing you do, and then you look at the art. But it's true, if you once the experience is as close as you can get to reality, then obviously it's just like if you were sitting in a gallery looking at it.
Well, you tried it.
I've tried it, absolutely fascinating. And, I encourage those who haven't tried it yet to try that Vitomir stand over there. It's absolutely fantastic. Yes, I will move on to Joel, who has, well, as I said, went through the same experience as Sylvain, is how to promote, how to promote the collection. There was a will to make it public in a way, and what was the best way of doing it. And so, explain us, Joel, how, well, you obviously use based on the sort of similar same technology, but with your experience actually doing it for your museum, and present us what you have achieved and done.
First of all, now being the third one, it's even harder to follow after these two wonderful presentations. But I think much that Sylvain said about wanting to share the collection in our when my parents started collecting, almost from the get-go, that was sort of a given, because the third painting that they bought turned out to be an actual Rembrandt. And so you sort of don't have a choice when something like that gets rediscovered. There's a a need and a will, a sort of natural need and will to share that. Hence, from the get-go, there was a loan program that was sort of informally created. First couple of years, within 5-6 years, the collection stood at 30 to 35 paintings, and it's sort of an addiction. So that calls it drugs, if I may call that. And I didn't understand that at all. I was 94. I was 14 years old. It was a long time ago, and I did not understand. I mean, obviously, growing up in Amsterdam. Museum lessons, understanding the importance of people like Rembrandt, Van Gogh, Vermeer. Again, sort of something that every school child that is privileged in the West enough to go to the Rijksmuseum and the Van Gogh Museum and all these fantastic places. But for me, very, very interesting. My father was in the newspaper. That was a big thing. But I didn't grasp how big that really was. Until I started, my parents are big believers in working your way up from the mailroom. So that's literally what I did when I said, well, this is cool, can I get involved? Sure, why don't you, read some contracts, do some administration, make sure you do that well for a year and then we'll see. So I literally started doing all these things. And the fun thing about a collection like this, and I think that's what sort of started igniting something in me about wanting to share as well, is the more you learn about what's in the collection, it's sort of an unending onion that you can peel. Both as a the collection has a history, each painting has a history. The more you look at each individual painting, where I really didn't understand copper etchings by Rembrandt, of which we have 3. It's probably the most fascinating thing for me personally. Did not understand that in the beginning. But the more, and when you're at that point, it's sort of, you don't grasp how interesting it is to have this little thing in your hand, which is 400 years old, and how innovative actually it was at the time. So again, the more you deal with those things, and obviously I'm very, very privileged to be able to have gone through that process and still am. And then you start your own career, and you sort of, you get a new passion, which is technology, and you start thinking about, okay, this is cool. Technology is the way forward. That's on a global and on a business level. But how do I combine that with the legacy that my parents are leaving behind? It took me a good 12 years to figure out a way to do that. And then came VR, and the rest is sort of history. So I think in terms of where does my passion come from for the collection and for what we're doing and for sharing, I think it's that process. I think seeing how much fun my parents have had throughout the years in building a collection and sharing it with other people, how much fun I have had in the past 2 years since we've launched our virtual reality experience, from 5-year-old school kids, where I met a lot of people that are sitting now in the audience and on the panel, 5-year-old girl in Bahrain, which just was in my art museum for a good 20 minutes. And actually Sylvain I was listening to someone else, and Sylvain elbowed me and said, you have to go to your stand because there's something cool happening. And that's really, it gives you a lot of energy. Up until the elderly, who also love this because it gives them the chance to do something that, instead of sitting at home in an elderly facility in front of the TV. So you get a lot of energy from that. And like Vitomir said, I can only echo that. We're just at the beginning. Like this is going to go. And actually, I think a lot of art institutions and collection don't fully grasp the potential of what is happening and what will happen with this. I can go on and on, but I'm going to.
Yes, I agree with you. There's no doubt that this is going to be massive in the years to come, and it could be, it's not in 5 to 10 years. I think it can be in the next couple of years, especially with Facebook, being behind Oculus and they're going to roll out new products there, and Facebook being so massively used, they've got such an audience that I wouldn't be surprised that it's a hit. Especially, they're not only through the actual goggles, like Vitomir said, and you very much developing that side, which is augmented reality. So it's visioning 3D virtual reality through your smartphone or tablet. Tell us a bit more about that, perhaps.
Yeah, so there are a couple of things that are challenging in the VR world. Mostly, I would say it's the hardware. The hardware is, to give you an example, when we launched this, I was traveling around with a flight case that was 4 times these 2 tables together, had to be checked in as cargo, had a desktop computer in it, and had 1 experience inside. And I did that for 9 months, believe it or not. And now I travel around anywhere I go. I came from holiday this morning, and in my carry-on on the plane I have room for 5 headsets, right? And that's in 2 years' time. And the quality of these 5 headsets is very, very close to the quality of the headset I had when we launched this. So I think, but it's still, it's still challenging. It's still not very widely spread. The dominant market leader being Facebook with their new Oculus Quest is literally saying we're selling them as fast as we can make them, and that's about 300,000 units per quarter. And it sounds like a lot, but if you think about the potential that this technology could have, it's really not. And if you compare that to the amount of mobile phones and tablets that have been distributed, which is 3.5 billion, it's really only a fraction. So what we said was, I say we, but it's a developer that works for us. He basically had nothing to do on a Sunday and said, why don't I try and port the 3D packaged experience onto an augmented reality enabled phone, and did it. And so on Monday, he presented it to us and we were like, well, this changes everything, because now you're talking about, grant you not all 3.5 billion smartphones that have been distributed have the augmented reality capability yet. But within 2 cycles of renewal, they will have. And so, again, Google is behind it now. Apple is behind that as well. Facebook is also behind it with a massive social initiative. And so we're now launching the same experience. Actually, if I click, is there a video?
Yes.
Okay. But okay, sorry. Yeah. And it has music, so I'll quickly finish it. It has the same 3D experience, but as seen through a magic window, right? So you have your tablet, and anywhere that you look is as if you're looking. So if I look up, I'm looking up at the ceiling within my museum. If I look around me, I'm looking around me within my museum. Pair that with the favorite controls of the youth for Fortnite or FIFA or whatever they're playing. I'm too old for that, but it's called the on-screen thumb controls. And so basically you're just like a joystick controlling yourself, moving throughout the museum. And the kicker is once you're actually close enough to walk, because the museum is 120 meters in diameter, right? So it's not like there are a couple of people who are crazy enough to walk, just for testing purposes, but once you're close enough to an artwork to walk, you can actually, your mobile device's camera will recognize where you are in the physical space, and once you walk towards it in the virtual space, you're walking towards a painting. And it has all the rest that the VR experience has as well, except that it's much wider distributed. So we're launching that in about 3 weeks' time. So really what we saw happening was if I may, it's not all about VR for us anymore. It's about the great 3D experience that you're building, all the artwork that you've put in, and then figuring out all these different outlet channels to reach as many people as you can to share.
Yes, I always like to take the example of the e-book reader.
Yes.
It was a technology which came out, sort of late in the 90s. It was quite hype when they got it out, but nobody adopted it, saying, this is a gadget, we prefer books, and it will never work. And it didn't work. 7 years later, 8 years later, Amazon came out with a Kindle, and everybody's using it now and saying it's absolutely fabulous. This is very much the path of what we're talking about here, is that, oh yes, yes, I have to have those goggles on or whatever, I have to know how to use it. But you'll see that in a very short time, you'll be all using it somehow, because your kids might be using it first, and they'll teach you, and you'll be on it.
And even Amazon had to recognize the dominance of Apple and Google with Android by creating a mobile app on all these devices to also be able to
be able to be so.
The question will not be for collectors today and future collectors for tomorrow, not be what you own in the real space. It will be more interesting to know what you own in the virtual space. Because in the virtual space, in like 5 or 10 years, people will spend a lot of time, maybe 20 years. But then it will not be so important like, okay, what do you have in your storage? But what have you digitized? Have you transferred it to virtual reality? And can I experience it in the way that I'm experiencing everything else today? Like we are having it on the phone.
True, but sorry.
I would say arguably, if you're digitizing it and you're experiencing it in a virtual realm, why do you need to own it? Why can't you just, if the value lies in the experience itself, then why not just kind of find a way to rethink the way that we think of ownership?
Ask the previous panelists. it's a pretty difficult, conference to ask such questions.
To Joel, so that we see your presentation, because time is ticking by, and it's really interesting that this is really fantastic that you've done that. Staying, of course, on the same subject with virtual reality, I'd like to now pass to Allegra, as this is not particularly to do with museums. Very wisely as you did, jumped in and said it could be, is how virtual reality can be adapted as a new medium for artists. I'm convinced, again, this is going to be a new medium for artists, and with incredible creativity possibilities. Allegra will surely tell us more about it. Artists have always piggybacked on new technology. When photography was invented, they adopted it very quickly as a form of art. Same thing with video. When video came out as a form of art. And now the next step, is virtual reality, if you can call it like that, for art. So, Allegra, please explain what you do, because it's exactly that.
Yeah, I'll tell you a bit about Khora Contemporary and why it's so important for artists to be using this medium. But I just want to start by adding to what you were saying earlier, you and Vitomir, about how important it is for art to be widely accessible to everyone, and how VR is really a vehicle enabling us to do that. And it was so clear to me. I mean, I was working at TBA21, an incredible foundation before I joined Khora, and we were organizing expeditions where artists would travel through the Pacific, meet the local people, and create artworks off the back of the research and these encounters. And the thing that frustrated us endlessly was that we could never leave the artworks behind, and the exhibitions were always taking place in major cities in Europe or in America. And the potential of the technology to be able to democratize art and travel it to various locations that wouldn't normally get to see the work was so important to me. So that was one of the major reasons I became interested. I'll show you a video. Joel, I love your video, it's great. I also have a video to show, but first I'll explain a bit about what we do. So Khora Contemporary was founded in 2016 by 5 partners. We bring together expertise in VR and also in art. And our mission is to establish virtual reality as a widely applied medium within the arts through the production of artworks. So we curate an artistic program and we work with artists to produce artworks through a back and forth dialogue between developers and artists. We have an in-house team specialized in working with contemporary artists. The way that these artworks are sold is relatively traditional. We sell them as editions, as you would a sculpture or a painting, but we do see the potential for a future where you may be able to, because the value does lie in the experience, you may be able to pay per view or stream these artworks. As it stands, the market for VR is kind of in a nascent stage, and the VR headsets aren't widely available enough to make this viable, but we do see the potential of that going forward. And the reason why it's so important for artists to get involved now with this technology is because we're still in a stage of experimentation and kind of uncertainty, and the medium is completely new, which means that there are no codified conventions as to how it can be used. Everything, artists have the power to completely shape the way that they manipulate, use, display the works. And the same for museums. Every time the work is shown, it's a first in this realm. So the way that these works are being shown, the works that are being produced are going to be referenced in for years to come. And also, from a technological perspective, getting artists involved when the technology is so new. Commercially available headsets, I think, have only really been available since 2015. So involving artists in the process of developing the technology at such an early stage could diversify the way that we think of this technology. It could really expand the way that it's used. So I think it's important from an artistic perspective, but also from a technological standpoint. And in terms of the way that the process works, the artist is really leading the way. Our team try and replicate as closely as possible the vision of the artist through kind of in-depth dialogue over time. It'll become clear once I show the video, so maybe I'll just...
Let's see the video.
This marked a new age for VR. This Oculus Quest, it happened like a couple of months ago. And this was the first moment that a gallerist or a collector can take his whole exhibition, put it in a backpack, and take it with him, and have the experience of actually walking through, which is important, like to walk through the exhibition. And this is the moment that people realized, at least the people that we spoke to, the gallerists especially, is that the brick and mortar, that's fine, but I can travel the world with only a backpack inside and get you inside of my gallery, or get you inside of my private museum if collectors are involved. And we talked about today about art on yachts and the problems of having to pay big insurance, but here's your art yacht. Here's your private museum on a yacht. You can have all your pieces that are scattered around the world in free ports, never accessible by public eye, never accessible by yourself, in your own museum, and then either you keep it private, that's not our concern, or you share it with the public, and that would be so cool, or maybe share a couple of it, right? So I think the moment is actually this year. the moment that we take the next big leap.
Fantastic. Thank you, Vitomir. Thank you, everybody.
We need to close the debate now because we still have two little speech. So I would like to thank you, Henry. I would like to thank you all for that. So I would like also to thank somebody that is not there, but that was at the origin of this panel. Is Rachel that we all met in Bahrain. So Sylvain, so and with the Faurschou Foundations, and with to Rachel. No, not Joël, of course, to Rachel. So so thank you all.